welcome back to Command Point for a very special video. As some of you may know, if you don't know, you've probably been living under a rock. But Shane, congratulations. You have won third place of the Warhammer Kill Team World Championships. How does it feel?
I feel great. I didn't expect to get to do so well, honestly. It was like I didn't feel super prepared. My goal was really to just try and get out of groups, which I knew was going to be hard because I thought my group was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of take it one game at a time, and then next thing you know, you're in the semifinals, and I feel really happy about how I played, and I had a really good time at the event. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I was so stoked to see that you made it as far as you did. Um, you know, last or the last Worlds, how far did you get in that one? Just for
Last,
context.
yeah, last year I just barely missed out on groups by the second tiebreaker, which was victory points, and I missed out by one victory point.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I mean, I came very close last year. I was in a pretty tough group then too. But this year it was like, I feel like every year people get better at the game. So, and there's like new good players that show up.
Hmm.
So I'm always expecting like the ball to drop, I guess. But did pretty well. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You're the third. I think you're the best kill team player in the world, but we want to look at the stats. You're the third best kill team player in the world, which is pretty amazing. So Shane, where do you want to start with our conversation today? There's a few different like storylines that we can really pick apart here. Your decision to take Hierotek Circle almost is kind of like a last minute pivot. Um,
Yeah, it
to
was kind of a last minute pivot.
Yeah. So I guess what we can
uh
start with that. What made what about the current kill team meta made you think, all right, let's take Hierotech again, the team that you won Adepticon with, but has been, like most other teams in this edition, has gone through a lot of changes.
yeah, I mean, so I was playing, as you know, Ryan, I was playing novitiates and I took them to New York Open. And I felt really like confident on them. Um, and I believe I went 5-1 at NYO, and my only loss was kind of a weird loss to Jason Fay where I messed up attack op, which I think everybody at this point knows all about that story. You can go watch it on stream. It's a tragedy that I don't want to relive. But
It's
but I felt really good with novitiates, and then like 2 weeks before Worlds, they announced that plague marines were going to be legal.
hmm
And I had experienced novitiates into plague marines a little bit, and let me tell you, it's awful. It's like really bad. Novitiates are like the weakness of plague marines is piercing too, and novitiates have none of that. They kind of rely on like crits and like weight of dice, and plague marine between the heal and the feel no pain, they can really get around a lot of damage if you're not like taking away all their armor saves. And they have ways to do damage outside of like attack dice, so they get around your defense, or I'm sorry, your damage reduction. It's just a horrible matchup. And I was like, well, I have a choice here because World's deadline is coming up soon. I can bang my head into the wall and try to figure this matchup out because I thought there would be a lot of Plague Marines. There ended up not being that many.
yeah.
Um, or I can pivot. And one of the other teams that I had some reps on that I felt good into because I did not want to take Legionaries was Hierotek Circle. And the nice thing about this, the cool thing about this was that Hierotek Circle is the team that I got my golden ticket with. So it felt sort of like completing the circle a little bit to go
Yeah.
back to them for Worlds, even if it is like a totally different team at this point. Um, and I just started like looking into them a little bit more and like playing some games with them, and it was like starting to click like, whoa, this is really, really good actually. Um, and I kind of thought they just didn't have any really bad matchups. Um, whereas I felt like all the other teams had at least one matchup that felt bad to me.
Hmm.
Um, I thought Legionary lost to Inquisition pretty hard, but evidently that's not as bad as I thought it was. Um, and to be quite honest, I'm not sure what Warp Coven loses to. So, um, but Hierotek, I think I was mostly right. Legionary ended up feeling really difficult, as we'll kind of get into, but they just felt like a team that was a little bit under the radar, that was really strong, that I liked the like vibe of, and I just wanted to see what I could do with them. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you said that Hierotek Circle, they have no bad matchups, or you couldn't think of
Mhm.
any bad matchups at the time. So, like, I guess, what are the strengths and weaknesses of Hierotek Circle as a team right now, for those who don't know?
So there's a quite a few. So first of all, they're pretty hard hitting. They that remained the same from last edition into this edition. They have very good offensive output. One thing that's different from last edition is that the internal balancing of the cryptex has been made a lot better. So the Chronomancer is still great, but the Psychomancer now is just like awesome. And you can like the Psychomancer being good now lets you pivot into different matchups pretty well. And I going in, I thought the Technomancer was pretty good. He is fine, but after Worlds, I think my takeaway is that the Technomancer is the worst of the three by a pretty wide margin, which might be a hot take to a lot of Heretic players, I guess. But I just think that at the top level, he doesn't bring enough in terms of like proactive play, and he's kind of a reactive piece where, like when he shoots, he's like a murder machine, but he doesn't like force the game state in a way that Psychomancer and Chronomancer can. But like, yeah, they have like a level of flexibility. They have staying power. They're really, really hard to score kill op against, which is a third of the points.
Yeah.
Um, and they have access to security and recon, which I think are the two best tac op trees.
Okay.
And they're not amazing at crit op. It's probably their worst aspect, but they're not bad at it either. Um, so I just think that they can like sort of force teams to play their own game a little bit, and they can lean into the things that they're good at depending on the matchup pretty well. And just reanimation, and if you play well with your reanimator and you position correctly, they can be just so hard to put down, and you just get so much like awesome setup with like magnify and like reanimating guys 3 inches away or 4 inches away really.
Hmm.
um and just like setting up these crazy shots that people don't expect, and just like surviving things that you have no right to survive, and just I don't know, they're very tough to play against, I think.
Okay. One thing that I thought was really interesting looking at the top four was it was Hierotek Circle U, and then there were two Legionary players and Warp Coven. Warp Coven I wasn't really surprised by, but there were two Legionaries in here. Um, you had said earlier that you weren't really feeling Legionaries for this tournament. Was there any particular reason?
It's not cool anymore was the main
Oh,
reason.
okay.
It's not nearly as cool. And there was like 15, I want to say, Legionary. They were the most represented, maybe 16.
Uh-huh.
They were the most represented faction. And to be honest, I find them kind of dull. Like they're very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they definitely need heavy nerfs probably.
Okay.
But they're not, I don't find them as fun as I found them last edition. Maybe I just liked like the uphill battle of playing an elite team last edition or something, but they are just sort of like uber oppressive, and they just like march like you can really win. There were people who went positive at Worlds playing Legionary who were saying my entire strategy was to just walk forward, and that was pretty much it. And they were winning games like that.
Okay.
So it's not the most exciting, and I don't feel like you like there's definitely like skill expression there, like with every team, but I do feel like there is an element of like your opponent has to play around you, and you sort of like just walk up and like it's like, hey, I'm a big problem, solve me. And if they
Right.
can't, or if their dice fails, and if the Legionary dice is good, it's like they're a very hard team to beat.
Okay.
And I just didn't find it very fun. Whereas Hierotek is like this, like as oppressive as they are at the top level, they're like this galaxy brain sort of team in my eyes, and I really enjoy the puzzles that they can get out of and the like the different play styles that you can lean into with them. So
Hmm.
I just really like that team.
Do you think that your opponents were like prepared for the Hierotek Circle, or do you think it was a matchup that you felt they were like, I don't know, lacking in like experience or just like, you know, preparation against?
I don't think anybody was prepared for Hierotek. Like I think everybody knew that Hierotek was going to be good. Like nobody came in and was like, "Oh, that's a bad team. They're not going to do
Hmm.
anything." But in a lot of my games, it felt like people were like totally stumped as to what to do. Even in the games where I lost, I got the impression that my opponents were like very kind of taken off guard by some of the stuff I was able to do.
Okay.
Um, and it felt like my losses were more like things that I did wrong, I guess, in a way where I didn't run into anybody where it felt like they had like a super solid plan for higher tech, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Okay. So I guess do we want to kind of like talk through, I guess your games at Worlds?
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit, really quick before we get into the games about like the event itself,
Sure.
because now I'm normally very like I don't like to be critical of events that I go to because I know that a lot of like love and care and like thankless work goes into them. But I do have to. I think there is some criticism that you can levy at this event. Like I can't not give it some crap because first of all, this was put on by Games Workshop. This is $1 billion company. They have the resources to make like the most epic thing ever, right?
Hmm.
Um, and this is not like shade being thrown at the judges. Like Travis, Ben, and Layla did an awesome job judging. This is more of like an organizational criticism, stuff that they were not like involved in. They were just there to be judges and TOs. They did a great job.
Okay.
Um, but organizationally, I mean, it just felt it was kind of a mess. Um, First of all, the big thing that I'm going to touch on that I think is the biggest problem, and this was technically something that was in the packet, but that doesn't matter to me, and I'll explain why, is that when so there was 8 groups, and the top 2 of each group made it out to the top cut, which was top 16.
Hmm.
And typically, when you play in this sort of format and you make the top cut, you expect that you're going to only play against people in top cut, which is what happened, but also that you got locked into top 16. You can't finish lower than 16th once you made the top 16 cut. That would make sense, right?
Right.
Well, people were told, um, like confirmed told, halfway through like semifinals at this point, that only the top 4 were locked, and that
Oh,
everybody who made top cut, so 16 through 5, they could finish below 16th, even though they were only getting paired against people in the top 16,
okay.
which
Yeah.
is like, I'm going to be honest, complete garbage. And I feel really, really badly for the people. Like, there was one guy, Matt Wilhelm, who made the top 16, played a very good group stage, worked his butt off,
Yeah.
went 4-2, and then he got, brought into the top 16, is only playing like the absolute killers of the tournament, and he went 0-4 on the weekend, and he dropped to like 59th place.
Yeah, that's horrible,
That
actually.
is unacceptable in my opinion, and like I've heard some like, oh well, it was in the packet, but the point isn't that like
It's in the packet and you should be expecting this. This is literally a case of we're going to pair you using skill-based matchmaking based off your performance at this event, and then we're going to pair you up against the people with similar skill level depending on your rankings. But if a guy 60 places below you goes 4-0 and you go 0-4, he's somehow going to be ranked higher than you at the final standings of the event.
yeah, and
That's garbage to me.
it's unfathomable how that even got added to the packet in the first place. Like, I don't need to be told, oh, it was in the packet. You should have known from the beginning. That doesn't matter to me. what I want to know is who even thought of that? Why
Yeah.
was that intention? That was an intentional thing. Like if you had told me, oh, this was an accident, it was a mess up with BCP, that would be one thing. But this was a real, like they meant to do this. Like
Yeah.
what in the world? It doesn't seem particularly fair to me. I think the people that sunk, below the top 16 that made it there
And that
are, I think they're right to feel pretty ticked off about that.
and it's not even just like numbers on a screen for this event. Doesn't this have like implications for your overall ITC rankings?
But yeah, yeah, it does.
Yeah. So like what are we doing here, Games Workshop?
Just unbelievable. Really.
That's
Um,
crazy to me. I can't
there
believe
were
that.
there were also tons of pairing mistakes where like we would have to like, but I don't know. I'm not gonna be too hard about that because that happens at a lot of events.
Yeah. BCP
Um,
is not the best app to work with for
yeah.
pairings anyways, so I mean,
I
I'm
mean, the
okay
people in
with
the
hand
top
waving
eight,
some of that stuff.
yeah, and like the people in the top eight really thought they were locked there because we won in quarterfinals, or I'm sorry, we won in top 16, and then the top eight, they like took us all aside and they took like professional like headshot photographs
Yeah.
of us,
Yeah.
and then they didn't end up using any of them except for the two people in the finals.
Yeah.
And then the people who were in the top eight, some of them ended up outside of the top eight because of this. And it's just like, it's just like, what are we doing?
Did they give you the headshot?
No,
Do you
I
have that
didn't.
picture of yourself?
I've never seen it. No, I don't
Dude,
think it's out there.
that's so upsetting. God, I wish we
Yeah,
had that because that would look sick.
yeah, it's like a cool moment,
Yeah.
But whatever. I feel more worse for the people that fell out, that were kind of they weren't told that they were going to be locked in, but there's definitely the implication. I mean, why would you even think that you aren't? I
Oh,
just
cool. I made top 16. Oh, I'm potentially not going to finish in top 16. All right,
yeah,
cool.
it's rough. I mean, people are super upset.
That's crazy. That's
But
like,
yeah, that was the main thing. There was like little things like the registration awards they gave us were like clearly left over from Tampa that got canceled. Like they all said US Open on it and not Worlds,
oh, okay.
which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Um, and when I got my best in faction thing,
Hmm.
they give you like a coin, like a coin,
Yeah.
and I think there were supposed to be different coins, but they because I saw other people's coins, and when I looked after, they just gave me the coin that I got in registration again, so I have two of them now. Um, yeah, just like silly things like that. We're
Yeah.
like what is happening here? They're definitely they have way too many resources to be making these kinds of mistakes.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Okay, so do you think that this might be, you know, the game is Kill Team and it is a one of GW's specialist games, so it doesn't get the same like level of care and attention that like stuff like 40K gets? Do you think that may have been a contributing factor?
No, because I think honestly, I heard all the 40K players were mad about it too. Apparently, it was not any
Oh,
cleaner over on that side. Yeah.
it was the same thing with the final placings and everything.
Format wise, I don't know. I just heard that all the 40K players were mad. And I mean, Underworlds
Oh,
had
okay.
like a mess. I mean, they had to like the edition isn't even out yet, so they had to like give everybody like an NDA to like get the rules for the new
Oh
edition
my
in
God, that's
advance.
right.
Yeah. And I guess they weren't thrilled about it, but I don't know. And I think also Warhammer Underworlds, and this is not the event's fault, but I guess like 14 out of the top 16 were all playing the same faction. How crazy is that?
Very interesting.
And we thought we have it bad.
I mean like I'll be honest, Shane, like not really. I still think
Yeah.
Kill Team is in a pretty good spot in terms of like overall balance. I mean, I'm looking at the top 8 here. Top 8 starting at number 8, Void Dancer Troop, Legionary, Warp Coven, Inquisition, Legionary, Hierotek Circle, Legionary, Warp Coven. So I mean, aside from, Warp Coven obviously being good, Legionary being good, uh, you know,
Yeah.
Void Dancer Troop was a surprise.
Yeah,
I
Bart
think
was very good with them, yeah.
I think Void Dancer is the only surprise here for me. Um, but yeah, so do we want to do you want to start talking about how your games themselves went?
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into the actual content.
Yes.
I'll stop ranting about worlds. We're
Yeah.
done with that. So yeah, my first game was into Felipe Gallardo from Chile, which crazy story. I actually played, he was my last game at Worlds last year. And now he was my first game at Worlds this year,
That's
which is kind of wild.
interesting.
It's cool that
Yeah.
he qualified again. And last year he was playing Inquisition, and this year he's playing Mandrakes. So right away, I have zero experience into Mandrakes with Hierotek, even like last edition when it was different. I just never played that matchup. And in
Hmm.
fact, that was the matchup that made me, one of the reasons that made me stop playing Hierotek, because it was like a notably terrible one with, Soul Strike making their armor saves go to like basically a 5 up
Yeah.
on the Mortals was really bad. And that's still a thing. Uh, and this game was crazy. And first of all, Felipe, shout out to him, very good player. And I thought for a good chunk of this game that I was going to lose my first game at Worlds. Um, we were playing, I don't remember, Coordinates, I want to say was the mission. And basically it was like, or it wasn't Coordinates. I can't remember which one it was, Intel maybe. But basically we were on Volcus, and I took the Psychomancer because the Psychomancer is like the anti-elf option. He has an ability called Nightmare Shroud where he turns off within 8 inches of him all enemy crits when attacking, not in defense. All enemy crits and all enemy rerolls. So they cannot reroll dice when they're attacking, and they cannot retain crits at all. So a 6 becomes a normal hit.
I hate this
Um,
model so much
yeah.
as a Hand of the
Uh,
Archon main.
yeah. Oh, I bet. So I ran him up basically into like not the middle of the board, but like stage to threaten the mid board objective. And the first thing first, I was deploying on the side of the map that had the third story Volcus or second story Volcus, however you'd call it, the really high.
Yeah, the one
Um,
with the third floor. Yeah.
yes, and I figured I did know one thing about Mandrakes this edition, and that is that they love to first activation teleport a guy up there on conceal
Hmm.
and sit there all game and like get and score surveillance the
Okay.
tac op and just get like a free 6 tac op points. So I was afraid he would do that, or like it's even better than that because they can like have the guy up there on conceal. You can't shoot him,
Yep.
and then next, he'll like flip to engage, shoot a guy, and then jump down, and then a different guy will teleport up there on conceal and do a surveillance again, and it's just like 6 VP, and you can't do anything about it.
Hmm.
So I did reposition for my scouting and moved my death mark up onto the first floor, and then I took initiative and ran my death mark up onto the top story, first activation, just to stop that from happening. And then it's like also just like a generically good place to have a death mark. Um, and really it was like he kept coming in and like trying to get kills, and in the death mark, or I'm sorry, in the nightmare shred bubble, it was just like nothing could happen.
Uh-huh.
So he was really struggling to take my models off the board. And so he started kind of taking risks and trying to like pick off my guys and like, put himself in positions where I was going to shoot him. But, with Mandrakes, it's a 4 up save, like it's an invuln save. So you never know. And those 4 ups they were coming in pretty clutch. He was, eventually he got to a point where he was like threatening my back objective really hard. I wasn't threatening his at all. And we were just kind of playing chicken near the middle. And I was coming back to life. He wasn't really killing anything because he'd get like 1 or 2 kills and then they'd come back maybe. And I pretty much always had full models on the board, and he was down to like 4 or 5 guys by the end of the game. And it was like by the end of or I guess by the last turn. And it was looking like I was going to lose by quite a few points. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do here? And it was the last activation of the game. I had one guy left. It was my Psychomancer. And I'm like, I'm not gonna get 2 points on confirmed kill. We're gonna split crit up 1 to 1. I'm not gonna hit the. I took kill op as my primary, and I'm like, I'm not gonna kill the last guy that I need to get three on my primary.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what the heck can I do? I can't move dash command my Deathmark to fight the guy that had 2 wounds in combat because the Deathmark already fought this turn. I'm like, what the heck do I do? And I'm in the tank for like a while. And then I see, I'm like, well, if I move dash, he had it on his back objective. It was in his stronghold, in his home stronghold. And he had the guy like against the wall inside the stronghold, like near the door.
Okay.
And it occurred to me, I'm like, well, I could hatchway fight
Yeah.
with my Psychomancer. So I'm like, let's do it. So I move dash hatchway fight with my last action with my Psychomancer. And the Psychomancer melee is 4 attacks on 4s, 4 damage with devastating one.
Okay.
And I'm like, I need 3 hits to go through. I have accurate one because I took the methodical elimination. I would have gotten accurate two, but I had to move more than my movement characteristic, which is 6 inches.
Right.
So I get accurate one, and I roll 3 dice, and I get 2 more hits, and I kill him, which drops another confirm kill token, which makes it so that I go 2-0 on crit op.
Hmm.
It gives me the next kill on kill op, which bumps me to 3 on primary, and I believe it swung one other point. Yeah, so it swung 4 points for me, and I end up winning 16-15.
Wow. Okay.
It was like a 5 point swing, I think, because
Yeah.
it took one of his crit op points away and it got me 4 points. And I barely win by 1 point. And I
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
crazy.
holy crap. And we were the last game to finish too. We were taking a while.
Yeah. How long did your
Um,
game go? Because I know you have like 4-hour rounds at this.
so for Thursday and Friday, we had 3 hour rounds and we went over 3 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I barely got a lunch.
Oh, okay.
Um, but this game was like very, very good. I mean, Felipe played very well. I was on the ropes pretty much for most of that game. And it definitely feels like I snatched victory from the jaws of defeat a little bit, which was a very
Nice.
stressful way to open the tournament.
Yeah,
But
I bet.
it was an epic game, and I had fun. So yeah.
Cool. So who was your round two opponent? And I don't think we mentioned this earlier. Who made up your group?
Oh, that's a good question. So
Yeah.
I was in the most like diverse group, if action wise.
Okay.
So there was my Hierotek, Adrian's Hierotek, so 2 Hierotek. So that's Adrian Benvento. There was John Reese, Can You Roll a Crit playing Legionary, and he was the only Legionary in our group. Notably, we had no Warp Coven in our group either.
Okay.
Uh, there were 2 UK players running Inquisition. We had 1 Mandrake, 1 Hearkyn Salvager, 1 Commandos, 1 Angels of Death, 1 Blades of Cain. Was there something? What else was there? 1 Blooded and 1 Plague Marine, and I think that's it. I don't.
Okay.
I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. I guess I can just pull it up.
Yeah,
Am I
that's a
forgetting
huge spread of
anybody?
factions.
Yeah, Mandrakes, Inquisition, Hearthkin, Plague Marines, Angels of Death, Blooded, Blades of Cain, Inquisition Commandos. Yeah, that was everybody. So yeah, we had like a ton of factions in our group, which was unusual. There was other groups with like 5 Warp Coven or like 4 Legionary. Um, and yeah, so it was a pretty cool group to be in.
Yeah, that's cool. So what was your round two? Who was your round two opponent?
So my round two opponent was Tom Robinson from England. He was playing Inquisition, and going into the tournament, I was like scouting my group a little bit, and Tom stuck out to me as he had a pretty high ITC rank, and he he actually I found out he had taken first place at the 70 player Turning Point Tactics tournament last edition,
Oh, okay.
and in the weekend before Worlds, he won another like 30, like high 30s, like low 40s player tournament with Inquisition in the UK. So I was like, oh crap, this guy is like pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, and so we played, and I had been getting rep games in Inquisition in the 2 weeks before, like after I saw my group. Um, and because they were a team that just terrified me, I kind of thought that Inquisition was going to win Worlds. They're just like they're just so good. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Um, and so we end up on Into the Dark, and we're playing on what is the mission? I believe it's Extraction, the one where the first point you tap is worth one, the second point you tap is worth two, and then the third point that gets tapped is like the main point, and the other ones go away.
Yes, yeah.
It's like kind of one of the worst missions.
Yeah.
And it's especially not great into Inquisition. So I went Psychomancer again in this. So there's a second game in a row going Psychomancer. We're on Galadark. Um, and early on into the game, he moved his leader and his Tome Skull up onto the middle objective in like the big open room. And we he ended up tapping the middle objective to get 1 point, which pretty much ensured that neither of us were ever going to tap our home points, because if we do that, we're giving our opponent the real point for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So it ends up being like a very boring crit op. Like we never tapped it until turn four.
Okay.
Um, but I on my home objective, I put the Psychomancer in like his side room with the Nightmare Shroud on. It's covering the whole room, so if he comes in and attacks my Psychomancer, he's going to be getting no rerolls, no crits.
Hmm.
And he did stage his plasma gun and his melta gun over there, so I figured there was going to be violence.
Yeah.
On turn two, I believe I can't remember which of us won initiative. I think it might have been me, because I run my immortal up into onto the like to get a shot on his um the middle objective, the Tome Skull and the leader. And I think he was under, so there was an FAQ that clarified for Worlds that for Inquisition so you know the denunciation aura that they get, where like either their leader or their skull and their skull can both have this, where basically enemies with or their friendly operatives within two, if you shoot them, you get -1 dice if they're near the leader or the skull.
Okay.
Well, they FAQ'd before Worlds that those two things don't stack. Like you can't have the leader and the skull next to somebody and get -2 attack dice for your
Yeah.
opponent.
Hmm.
But that was how it worked. Technically, Rolls is written, but they FAQ'd that that doesn't work.
Okay.
And I think Tom did not. He must have missed that FAQ.
Oh, okay.
Because I go to shoot my Tesla and he goes, "Oh, -2 dice," and I'm like, "No, I don't think. I think they changed that." And we called the judge, and the judge confirmed. And so he's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna absolute authority. I'm gonna cancel your blast firefight ploy." And I'm like, "Makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Totally fair."
Yeah.
Um, and I shot him, and then I think he like something else. He had like moved his other guy to like open the door on the right side of that big room. I didn't end up killing anybody with the Tesla shot, but he did something else, like some stall move next, because I don't think he realized I had another opportunity, which was I had my Apprentech tell that immortal that just shot to dash, because he hadn't dashed yet. He had just moved and shot. I
Yeah.
tell him to dash 2 inches so that I can get an angle, like a long bomb down through that door that he opened to see his plasma and his melta. Who the
Ooh.
melta he had 3 APL, and I do a magnify shot,
Oh my God, the
so getting
magnify.
ceaseless, piercing one like on the other side of the board to hit his melta, and it's 4 shots on threes, 4 or 5 damage, piercing one with ceaseless. So I'm like, this is a dead melta. This is
Yeah.
awesome for me. This is going to be huge for the
Yeah.
game. And I somehow only get 2 hits, and he saves them both.
All
And
right.
I'm like, oh no. And then the Melta goes into the room with my Psycho, and I'm like, all right, he has no rerolls. He can't crit. Odds are pretty good for me. And he just gets 4 natural hits. And I'm
What
like,
what
oh
does the
God.
Melta normally hit on?
Threes for
Okay.
him. It's Casterkin.
Yeah.
He doesn't miss anything. And I have to use my phase shifter, and I live on 2 wounds because I make it piercing one, so I only take 12 damage. um,
Jeez. It's a cool casual 12 damage. Yeah.
Yeah, and on the first turn, it is noteworthy that Tom was very, very careful about keeping his guys out of like blast range, because my Psychomancer is blast and my Tesla's I can pay 1 CP to give my Tesla's blast.
Hmm.
So I'm like, all right, cool. He's staying out of 2 inches. He's doing the right thing. And I think the game like devolved in a way where it was so like he was we were both kind of scrambling to get attacks into each other
Uh-huh.
that the whole keeping guys out of 2 inches thing like sort of like I think it like left his mind after the first turn
Yeah.
because I must have got like it felt like after the like turn two like midway through turn two it was just I was getting blast after blast after blast. Um, I ended up moving the Psycho over, reactivating Nightmare Shroud, and getting a blast on his leader. Not his leader. It was two guys that were standing near that door, his Quest Keeper and somebody else, and I killed the Quest Keeper outright, and I injured the other. Oh, it was his Mystic, and I injured the Mystic. Um, and then the Plasma shot me, and I think the Plasma killed me. But my Psycho came back to life. I was able to bring another guy and another Immortal up into the room to kill the Melta. Um, and the middle room I had my death mark on guard, ignoring obscuring, so that if his servitor with a melta gun popped out at all, I was going to take a shot at him, and I did. The servitor lived with like 2 wounds, and then shot, so he was injured, and I think he just whiffed because he was hitting on fives. Um, and he had a pretty big whiff on the left flank where his pistolier, his gunner pistolier with the plasma gun and the suppressed auto pistol came in and just like whiffed on my immortal, or my apprentice, I think it was. And the pistolier died pretty soon. My psychomancer came back to life next turn, or I think he might have just gotten revived by the reanimator. Um, and I like it got to a point where like almost everybody was dead outside of like 2 models. And finally, he just tapped his back point to get 2 points. I tapped my point, and then I held it, so we both got 3 on crit up.
Mm-hmm.
My attack up was confirmed kill, which I like against hordes because there's so many bodies and you're killing so many guys that it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to
You're
get
just
those
gonna
points.
naturally score it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then on kill up, I think I got 5 points and he got like 1 or 2 maybe. Um, and it was like a 16-10, I want to say, like a pretty clean victory. Tom was a pretty good player, and that was a fun game.
Great. So you're 2-0 on day one. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so how are you feeling at this point? Back-to-back 16-point wins.
Yeah, pretty good. Like the first game was so close. I was a little rattled by how close it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second game, it felt like a lot more. I felt a lot more in control, and I was like, all right, steady up. Like we got a clean win there. Let's just push on and kind of get back in our zone, I guess,
Okay.
like our comfort zone. And then there was the last game on day one.
Oh, there was 3
And
games day one. Okay.
yeah, so it's Thursday and Friday there was 3 games each, and then Saturday, Sunday were 2 games each.
Okay.
Um, and I played. So at this point, there's 3 2-0s left in the group. It was myself, John Reese, can you roll a crit, playing Legionary, and then the Hearkyn player, Sebastian. Um, and I get paired into the Hearthkin player, and I'm like, well, I'm thinking about the matchup, and I'm like, well, I mean, their whole faction identity is they auto crit with grudge tokens.
Hmm.
I'm gonna take the Psychomancer so that he can't auto crit.
Yeah.
And so I go
That's
Psycho again. We're on open.
crazy. This model's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So we're on open board this time, and I do know one thing about Hearthkin, and that is that their jump pack warrior. There's one like play that all the Hearthkin players do. They take the Writ of Claim equipment to basically make them like basically guarantee initiative turn two
Okay.
because they add one for each objective they contest and each objective they control, so they can add like a minimum 2 if they're just holding their back objective. Um, so I just say I'm thinking like, all right, he's gonna get initiative turn two. He's gonna launch his jump pack warrior 3 APL at me. He's gonna fly 11 inches, or he's gonna charge 10 inches and fight. Um, and then try to throw crack at me because his crack's out on fours, but for Hearthkin, if you're within 6 inches, you add one to your ballistic skill with their ploy, so they hit on threes.
Okay.
And there's grudge tokens, so it's like they can't not do this play. Every Hearthkin player does this play.
Right.
Um, it's kind of telegraphed, but like a lot of teams, they just can't do anything about it, so it doesn't really matter.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I bunkered down with my Psychomancer on the side with the jump pack warrior. I lose turn two initiative. And he actually goes for a pretty interesting target, which I think it's a smart target. He goes to kill my reanimator in melee.
Okay.
Because like if you kill the reanimator, it's really bad for Hierotek. And he charges the reanimator. He's in the bubble. He can't not be. And so the reanimator has 5 wounds, and the jump pack warrior's damage is 4/6 with like lethal 5.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not getting crit, so it's just 4 damage, and he can't reroll. He gets 1 hit
Oh yeah.
on the bug,
Yeah.
so he can't kill it,
Yeah.
and he can't reroll.
Yep.
And the bug can just fall back for 1 APL.
Yeah.
And that happened, and we were both like, okay, this game feels over already.
That's
Like,
crazy.
so I mean, that jump pack model died.
Uh-huh.
I had my Apprentice walk up on the other side of the board, and I just shot and killed um, one of his guys on his back objective. And he killed him back, but it's like I just don't care. I'm just gonna reanimate him next turn. On the back in the vantage point on conceal, so he won't even be able to shoot me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at that point, I move up onto the middle objective and I put my death mark. I pay a CP to put him on guard on conceal behind the heavy cover. So if he wants to come out at all and fight me over that middle objective, I'm gonna get a guard shot with the death mark, which is like an auto kill basically. He eventually decided to risk it and run his grenadier out, and the death mark just deleted him. Um, I took take ground because the fortress was partially in his DZ, the one that was like a kind of in mine. It was in both of our territories basically, and I put a barricade in there, and I just parked my psycho in there on conceal with the shroud online, and he could never do anything about the psycho. It was just like unkillable. Like if he walked a guy in there, I was going to have an immortal or a death mark or another immortal shoot them. And I mean, we just like it was a very one-sided game. It was not because of not for any like lack of effort from Sebas. He was a very good player, and he was a good sport about it, despite the fact that it pretty much turned on its head in the first like 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I learned that Hearthkin is very bad into Psychomancer, and I was not planning going in to be like, all right, Psychomancer's my game plan. We're gonna go Psycho every game. This thing's broken. But it was like each and every game, I'm just like, yeah, this is the one to take. This is the right play here.
Okay. So, when you said that you bunkered down with your Psychomancer, when you deployed this game, do you literally mean you set up every single one of your models inside of like the 8-inch bubble or whatever it is that the Psychomancer has?
No, I just mean the Psychomancer, I put him in the heavy I put him in the fortress in the stronghold
Mm-hmm.
against like in the corner, kind of closest to my deployment zone. I tucked him into the corner and I put the light barricade or I put him behind the light barricade that I put. So he's like fully in the corner surrounded by terrain.
Yeah.
The only way they can shoot him is if they go up on the vantage right in front of me,
Uh-huh.
because then the heavy cover isn't blocking them, or he can use the seek light on the locator to like
Right.
walk into the thing and
Okay.
shoot me. They have to go inside, which
Yeah.
means the only way they're shooting him is if they're in that bubble, and
I see. Okay.
they just can't do it. So like they've got a lot of piercing, but they're not getting rerolls. They don't get their grudge tokens. They don't get their crits. And since he's in that corner tucked against the side of the wall, he's actually also within 8 inches of the middle objective too. So he's covering 2 of the 3 flanks.
Okay.
Um, and he's 3 APL inside the stronghold. I have other guys there that can run in if I need to. So I'm just like guaranteed to get take ground every turn, pretty
Right.
much.
Yeah. Very cool. So that's end of day one for you.
Yep.
Start of day two, you had a pretty
Yeah,
cool
I
opponent, right?
yeah, I played Can You Roll a Crit, John Reese, playing Legionary. So this was like Legionary is very, I felt going in that I had a pretty good matchup into them. By the end of this tournament, I realized that I did not.
Oh, okay.
Um, we end up on Into the Dark. Now it was notable that Adrian and I, the other higher tech American player, we were kind of bouncing strategies off of each other for the past 2 weeks. because we're in the same group. We're going to play the same opponents. We both want to get out of groups for like Team USA.
Hmm.
Um, and in the first round of the tournament, when I was playing Mandrakes, Adrian and John paired up. And Adrian, we had kind of discussed like on open board, let's go Technomancer. Let's see how that feels. Um, it seemed like the right play. And Adrian took Technomancer against John, and he ended up losing. And now I can't speak to that game. Um, I talked to Adrian a little bit about it. You'd have to get his full take on it to like know. But it definitely sounded like, all right, well, clearly Techno isn't like this like favorable thing at least. Like it's I kind of went in thinking, oh yeah, Techno is really good against elites. And John had already beaten it on open board, and I'm like, okay, well, that's troublesome. Um, and we're on Into the Dark, John and I, and I'm like, well, you know what? Um, Psychomancer's pretty good on Into the Dark.
Gosh.
And so I took Psychomancer because first of all, really underrated aspect of this is if you're playing can you roll a crit, you take the guy that doesn't let him roll crits. I mean, right? That's just
Oh
like the
yeah,
obvious answer. The
yeah.
answer is no. You cannot roll a crit.
That is a
Um,
crazy level of like meta disrespect. That
yeah.
is hilarious trolling.
um,
Accidental.
I was genuinely on the fence, and somebody mentioned that to me before the game, and I was like, I think I just made up my mind. I think that's it. Um, and so I go Psychomancer, and we're playing on what is the mission? It's Power Surge, the one where you have to choose the objective to be the surge for the turn, and then your opponent chooses, and if you tap it, you get a point. Um, Now this objective, this crit op is like it's really easy to get 2-0'd on,
Mm-hmm.
um, like where it feels like it shouldn't be a 2-0, but it just is. Um, so I go Psychomancer. He runs two warriors, and he goes five Nurgle in a Zinch Meltagun. And turn one, he actually switches the warriors to Slanesh to like stage them further up into a like a behind a barricade. Um, and I noticed on turn one that on the so in this room the middle objective was on the side room, and he put a barricade behind it. And my home objective is like in a separate room closer to my DZ. And I noticed that there's a door, but like from my home room to the middle room, and from that door is like past the middle line, or at least like an angle where I could like theoretically, if I had a guy there, I could shoot him behind his barricade. Like I get an angle behind the barricade. And so I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, I see a play here. So he throws two guys behind barricades, like one behind a portable, one behind a light. And I'm like, all right, I have my accelerator give an immortal an APL, and I wait until he's out of activations. And I put that immortal on engage, and I move dash and open that door, and I he's on engage, and then my Psychomancer can see him, and I have my Psychomancer walk up, cast Nightmare Shroud, and I magnify shoot through that engaged immortal. Now he realized what was happening, and he was able to move one of the guys away with a counteract. But I shoot that warrior who's Slanesh, who does not have piercing reduction because he's Slanesh, with the piercing 2 Psychomancer gun, getting ceaseless, and I bring him down to like 5 wounds. And then on turn 2, I win initiative, and that immortal there activates, kills that Slanesh warrior, and then walks back behind the barricade, kind of blocking off the lane to just like charge my Psychomancer with his chosen. Um, and he ends up sending another warrior in there, and I can't remember exactly how this happened, but I killed the other warrior. And early on into turn two, and it was kind of interesting because I've just killed two of the six legionary. He hasn't killed anything of mine. I'm
Yeah.
like, this game is going really well. Like I've had like the dream start. Like things are going so well.
Yeah.
And then his chosen charges in onto my immortal, and he fights through the nightmare shroud bubble. And I believe he's not getting crits and he's not rerolling. And I believe he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't kill the immortal. Um, and so they're just like stuck in combat. Um, and I'm like, all right, how do I deal with this? Like, what do I do about this guy? Because if he kills me, he's going to heal D3 plus 3, and that's a big problem. Um, and like so I there was a moment where I was tempted to just send my immortals like into the meat grinder. Um, and because I could have had the immortal engage with him, I could have commanded him to fight because I gave the Despotech 3 APL, and I could have had the Despotech command the immortal to fight, do as much damage as he could, and then probably die realistically, and then have the Despotech charge and fight. Definitely not die because I mean at that point it's pretty hard to like get that kill when you need 3 hits with the chosen without rerolls. Um, realistically, you need like 5 hits because I can parry out like natural hits. And if I do that and charge and fight and lower him down a little bit more, then I could have the psycho charge in and finish him off. And I was like, well, that's kind of risky. I don't want to like lose more medals than I need to, and it would be like it would be like potentially costly, but I would almost guaranteed kill him. And I decided not to do it. Part of the reason I did that was because I completely forgot about the Chosen's ability, where if you try to fall back from him on a 3-up, you just don't. Um, knowing that, I would have absolutely thrown my guys into the meat grinder. But still, with that, the game was not like in bad shape. Like it was still winnable. Um, and it kind of just, but that guy being there made it kind of a like a mess in that back room.
Hmm.
And he was able to get 2-0 on the crit op on turn 2 because I wasn't aggressive enough in that side room. He had his anointed just sitting on the objective, and I could have just ran my apprentice up there to like contest it at least, but I was afraid of losing my apprentice next turn. Um, probably should have just ran him or an immortal up there and just like played the trading game. But we it becomes kind of a scrum in that back room because I let the chosen live, and eventually the chosen kills a guy and heals. And like all my progress of killing him was kind of gone. And my psychomancer dies eventually, and I'm like, all right, this is still okay because he has his Melta and his chosen like in the same exact room within 2 inches of each other, and my reanimator is right there, and he can reanimate my psychomancer who hadn't gone yet to revive him like 3 inches away on a gauge, and then I could just blast them both. And if I had done that, the game is like kind of over, and I think I just win and clean up.
Hmm.
And I made one mistake that I like was really like trying to pound into my own head in my prep, and that is to not use the reanimator to bring a guy back until like the last activation
Okay.
because he had his anointed left to go. And it just, I had like a brain fart, and it didn't occur to me that if I bring my uh, Psychomancer back, there wasn't a spot where I could put him where he wasn't either going to get guard shot by the Melta or move dash hatchway fought by the Anointed.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Like my Psycho's just dead. If I just waited one more activation when the Anointed had already gone,
Yeah.
this would be no problem at all. I would be completely safe. So I reanimate him too early, and the Anointed comes up and just kills my Psycho. And um, from there, I had to like make a risky play to like bring an Immortal back on a 3-up and like shoot with my Reanimator um, instead of just like getting the guaranteed reanimation. And my Reanimator ended up finishing off like a low health Legionary. I think it was the Melta because the Plasmacytes have like pretty good shooting actually. And my Immortal comes back, but I can't really do anything with him. There's not like a great play to like that I can even pull off, and I end up losing 14 to 15 by
Hmm.
1 point. And I think if I had just brought back my Psycho on the last activation, I get that blast off, and I probably just win the game. I get one more kill, and that probably is enough. But I lose 14 to 15, and it's like, oh, that was so close. Like
Yeah.
I definitely could have won that game. But John played it very well. I always have really good games with John. I love playing him. I think he's 2-1 against me now, which is a bummer. But he is, he's a good player, and I ended up, doing pretty well anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so round two of day two. Now I see here that you got the final score for you for this game. It was a win. Spoiler alert. But you only got 10 points in this game, which I feel like is kind of low for games of Kill
Very,
Team.
yeah, very low. Um, so this game was very special because it was I mentioned earlier that Adrian had lost to John in the first round, but since then he was like on a tear. He had won all his games and um he was 3-1 now and I was 3-1 and we're both playing Hierotek and it is becoming increasingly likely that when we play, the winner of our game is probably going to be the one to get out of groups. And we get paired. And it's unfortunate because initially our plan was we were hoping both of us could get out of groups as the
Mm-hmm.
two American Hierotech players. And like we had been sharing all our secrets with each other and like
Oh
trading
no.
strategies for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And now we're playing and it's like kind of life or death.
Man.
Um, and we get put on open board on loot. And it's a Hierotech mirror. And we're both kind of going in like, oh, this is gonna suck. Higher like mirror matches are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this was one of my favorite games of the tournament. Uh, Adrian and I both had a really good time. We ended up playing, and it's a testament to the internal balance of the team because him and I played completely different lists,
Oh, okay.
like totally different. So he ran a Psychomancer and 4 Tesla Immortals. He didn't run any Death Marks, and I ran Chronomancer with 2 Death Marks and 2 Gauss Immortals.
Okay.
So like about as different as you can go. And we ended
Yeah.
up taking different tack ops in this game too. Um, we're on Volcus, we're on open board. So my game plan, and I can go into this, was I suspected that Adrian might take Psychomancer, and Psychomancer puts up his big bubble of like death of
Yeah.
feels bad. But the Chronomancer, if I take him, I can see which side that he decides to put that bubble up and I can use Time Splinter to like maneuver around it and like force the fight onto like another flank. And Time Splinter is the teleport ploy.
Oh, okay.
So like it's really like Chronomancer is like a very fast moving list if you want it to be where you can like pivot
Mm.
your models really well. So I'm like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
if he puts the bubble up on one flank, I'm going to try to teleport onto the other flank or at least do my best to threaten both flanks as much as I can because he has the Apprentice on one side and the Psycho on one side and he can't have the bubble up on both sides.
Yeah.
Um, And so Adrian's game plan in this game was like very like he's not going to try to kill me at all. He's going to try and score points and win on crit op and just set up and outscore me.
Okay.
And my game plan was basically like full send murder.
Okay.
Um,
Very cool.
on turn one, I was threatening both flanks from my deployment zone with time splinter magnify shots. Um, and I ended up getting a shot turn one on like onto his back line on his back objective with by putting in a death mark on engage and moving my chronomancer up 6 inches forward within 6 of my death mark, using time splinter to move the death mark 6 inches further forward in front of my chronomancer, so like 14 inches ahead on engage, where I can see him, so that I can uh, get a magnify shot onto or actually not even a magnify shot. I could command him to shoot his the immortal on the other side. And I think I just killed the immortal on turn one. And he ended up coming back next turn. But like the tone was very much set there. And as we kept going into the game, Adrian would be in these positions where he's like, I could try to kill you, or I could go here and get a point. And he would think about it for a long time, and he'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm just going to go get a point. I'm not going to attack you.
I mean, I don't blame him.
And every single time I was like, I could get a point or I could try to kill a guy, I'd be like, I'm going to kill a guy.
Well, I mean, you get points
And
for killing guys too when you think about it.
yeah. And so I think he attacked me like 3 times all game.
Okay.
And I ended up I killed like 5 of his guys. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I got like 4 or 5 on kill up. And he got like one,
Oh,
maybe
that's true
zero.
too, because you're getting those bonus points.
Yeah.
Whoever has the
Um,
higher kill op.
yes. So he won on crit up by one.
Mm-hmm.
And on tac op, funny enough, he took secure center and he got 2 points on it. And I took contain and I got 2 points on it. And both of us made tack up our primary, so we only got 1 point on primary, which is why the game score was so low.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I ended up winning narrowly on the last turn off of like a few activations, 10-9. And he kind of, I think he got a little too, like a tiny overzealous with trying to deny me crit ops, and he ended up feeding me kill op. And
Okay.
it didn't really occur until like the dominoes were already falling. Um, and I ended up barely squeaking it out. And it was a very, very good game. And it was one of the most fun games of the tournament for me. We both just had like a super fun time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of laughing the entire time because we're doing it just completely differently.
Yeah.
And
That's
Adrian's just like, yeah, I'm not going to attack you, Shane. I'm just never going to attack you. I'm just going to score a point. And I'm like, I'm going to try to kill you.
Thank you for not killing me. Die. Um
Yeah.
Cool, yeah. No, that is really cool that you both had this mirror match but played basically completely, as differently as you can using that same faction. It's really cool.
Yeah. It didn't feel at all like a mirror match. It felt like we were playing two different factions. It was sweet.
I I kind of miss list building, Shane.
Yeah. Me
Um
too. That's why I
yeah.
played Hierotek.
All right, so who is your next opponent?
So round six, this is like if I win this, I'm like after the win against Adrian, I'm like very in a strong position. Like I can definitely get out of groups now,
Uh-huh.
potentially even with a loss. But I'm like, if I win, I'm 5-1. I'm in.
Yeah.
Like I can just win this game. So my last game was against Mikey from Australia, who was playing Blooded.
Okay.
Now I had a little bit of experience in a Blooded against one of our locals like a week ago, before Worlds. So I knew the team's rules somewhat, um, but I wasn't super familiar with like the like what somebody at Worlds was going to do with them. And Blooded, I mean, Ryan, you and I both know Blooded is like the people that play Blooded are the people that want to table their opponent, who want to roll dice and kill things, right?
Yeah, me too.
So Mikey, first of all, shout out to Mikey, really cool guy, really nice dude. Um, I can't believe he was playing Blooded because this he was super passive. And I think he played it correctly. Like I think it was right to be so passive. I was just surprised that a Blooded player was even capable of that. Um, and so we're on Into the Dark on it's the mission where you can tap the point and then pick up the point and carry it. And if you're carrying it, then no more points can be added to it. And if you control it at the end of the game, then you get the points that were tapped on it.
Mhm.
So ran into the dark, and it's map six, I think. It's the one with the like, or no, it's not map six. It's the one with the three really long rooms. Um, and so I'm on the side. I just take my back point, and the middle point is he runs out to it. Um, or actually, no, like I run my. Okay, I took Psychomancer. I forgot to mention that. Surprise, surprise. So 5 out of my 6 games and groups, I took Psychomancer. So I run the Psychomancer up onto the middle point with his bubble up. I'm like, you know what? Whatever. He can have his Melta come shoot me. I think he'll miss a dice. I think he'll miss just one, and if he misses just one, then the Melta basically is bouncing off of you because the Psycho can use Phase Shifter to reduce the piercing once per turn to make a piercing 1. And if he only gets 3 hits, then I can save 2, one of them with Undying Androids for a free save, and then just roll 3 up, and then I only take 6 damage and I kill the Melta, and then I'm gonna heal later anyway with Living Metal. So it's just like a really good strategy to like bait out their best gun. And so what he does, he actually doesn't shoot me with the Melta. He just keeps like passing and passing and passing, and then he runs one warrior up on the other flank and fights my Immortal. And I'm like, that's weird because it's just a basic trooper.
Right.
And like I have Tesla Weave, so he takes like 3 damage on the way in. I have 2 auto retains with accurate. I'm like, I'm just gonna kill this guy. He's got like 1 hit, and he's like, I implant you,
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, that's a thing. I'm like,
that
I
is a
forgot
thing.
about that
Yeah.
tech up, and I didn't know how implant worked really because like I understand how it works, but I didn't fully understand it because nobody really has run it against me before.
Mhm.
But like, what I didn't realize is that you get a point for implanting, and then if the guy you implanted is alive at the end of the turn, you get another point. What I didn't realize is that that guy that he implanted stays implanted for the whole game. So if that guy's alive on turn 3 too, he gets another point. If he's alive on turn 4, he gets
Oh,
another point. So he gets 4 points by that guy not dying, basically for the whole game. And he can get the last two by just implanting two other guys. So if he implants one more guy, he's going to get 5 points on his stack up.
okay.
And I'm like, all right, that's
That's pretty good.
that's pretty good
Yeah.
considering you're playing Hierotek and you know you're not going to get kill up anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so he just implants me, and I'm like, okay, that's not good. And he charges his Ogryn into my Psychomancer in the middle. Um, and uh, he fights, and the Ogryn doesn't kill me because he's not getting rerolls or crits. Um, and I do like a little damage to the Ogryn, and we're both like contesting the objective. And then he just runs another guy up and picks up the objective and like starts running away with it. And next turn he like won initiative and he just took the objective that he picked up with 1 point on it and ran back into his deployment zone and shut the door to the middle room. And I'm like, well, crap. And he's got four guys up against that door, just like blocking me from getting in. And I'm like,
Right.
well, this is unfortunate. So I start like killing guys on the other side where he had like implanted me.
Hmm.
And I'm just like getting like little kills here and there. I have confirmed kill again because it's a horde, and I'm just like picking those up. I killed the ogre in the middle, and he's worth 2 confirmed kill points, which is huge because
Right.
he's got
Yeah.
16 wounds. And the Mikey was not giving me a lot of guys to kill. Um, I end up killing his diabolic bomb, who explodes and then explodes from the bitter demise ploy. And I think it ended up killing my, or no, it almost kills my psychomancer. And then another guy finishes off my psychomancer, and then I kill the guy who finished him off. And it then we go to turn 4, and I'm like, this, um, I'm like, I need this. Like this game is going to get away from me
Yeah.
if I can't get that intel point on the back. So my psycho, who has like 4 wounds left because he just got up, uh, walks over to the door that has like 5 of his models, including the guy holding the intel point, standing right there, within 2 of them, and I blast them all, including my own Psychomancer. And this is the piercing 2, lethal 5 because ran
Okay.
into the dark,
Yeah.
blast 2 inches, 2 inch devastating one. So every crit, every 5 up on each attack is splashing into the guys within 2.
Oh,
And needless to say, including my Psychomancer, every single model died. He
that's
drops the
awesome.
intel point, and I run my reanimator over to control it. Those 5 kills got me to 5 points on kill op. They dropped 1 million confirmed kills, so I
Yeah.
maxed that. And I end up getting the intel point there, and I got the 3 intel points in my backline, so I got 4. And like, I think he had killed like one guy at the end of the game. He did get 5 on implant,
Hmm.
but I just like had all the kill op points. I maxed my tac op, and I did well enough on crit op that it was a ended up being a pretty convincing win. But it came down to like that like suicide bomber blast everybody, including myself, play.
That's
And it's
hilarious,
actually
man.
cool because when I shoot myself, the crits are still splashing onto my opponent who's within
Yeah.
2 inches of me.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's an awesome play.
What a
That was
goofy mechanic that is.
yeah, yeah. It was so funny. Psychomancer felt really good.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that made me 5-1, which guaranteed I got out of groups. So
Sick. So that's end of day two, right? Because you play three.
yes,
Yeah. Okay. So you got out of groups. You're into what stages after groups? They say.
championship round.
Okay.
So it's
Interesting.
top 16 bracket, basically.
Okay. Cool. So everybody at the event is bracketed off by their
Yes.
like performance. Okay. Cool.
And all the people now that I'm going to play are like, they've already gotten top 2 in their group. So it's
Yep.
like, it's really tough now. Every
Yeah.
game's going to be extremely hard.
Cool. So your next opponent it looks like was Guy Barton.
Yeah. So Guy Barton is obviously, so if you're watching this, you probably know that Dan Barton won Worlds. Dan Barton is like a kid. He's like 18. And his
Right.
father, Guy Barton, goes to the tournaments with him. And Guy is a very, very good player himself, as evidenced by the fact that he made top 16. Um, Now, Guy was playing Hierotek Circle, so I had another
Oh my
Hierotek mirror
goodness.
match on my own. Now, fortunately, I felt okay about this because I'm like, well, I just played this yesterday.
Yeah.
So I knew that I felt pretty good about Chronomancer. I didn't know what Gaia was going to do. I thought maybe Psychomancer, but I don't know how many of like the other higher tech players were as high on Psychomancer as like the Americans. Because myself and Adrian and also Kellen Foster, who's running higher tech, we were all pretty high on Psychomancer. Um, and I think Guy was not running Psycho as much. He was running a lot of Techno, he told me.
Okay.
But we take our lists out. First of all, Guy was super cool, really nice opponent. And I think my two favorite games of the tournament were the higher tech mirror matches. Um, I
That's
don't know which
crazy.
one. They were both a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
But so Guy and I reveal our lists. I took the same list against that I took against Adrian. So the two Goss Immortals, two Death Marks, and the Chrono.
Mm-hmm.
Guy took the same exact list as me.
Oh no.
So it is a true mirror match, and we're on Into the Dark. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna suck because again, it's a mirror, but it felt like a chess match kind of.
I mean, yeah,
We
you
have
guys have the same exact teams, so
it's yeah, it's the same exact team. So one thing I did learn against Adrian was I'm never gonna take contain against Hierotek Circle. So I went confirm kill because I'm like, it's kind of funny because if you kill a Hierotek model, they drop a confirm kill token, and if they come back and you kill them again, they drop another confirm kill token. So it's actually, even though they're hard to kill, like permanently, it's not that bad getting confirm kill against them.
yeah.
And the Psychomancer is worth 2 points on confirm kill because he's got more than 12 wounds. Um, and I think he ended up going plant beacons, which is not typically a good tack out for higher attack because we have like 16 APL or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a lot of APL to be planting beacons. A lot of teams are really good at plant beacon, and in the hands of like Inquisition or Phobos, it's like one of the best tech ops in the game. For higher tech, not so much. But he took plant beacons because I think he suspected it was going to be a very cagey game, and he ended up maxing it to his credit. Um, I think I also ended up maxing confirm kill though, so that strategy worked pretty well. And there was a lot of like we played on the board that I played against Mikey on Into the Dark.
Okay.
And I knew that that back room where my objective was, which is the side that Guy was on now, um, was it felt very unsafe when the blooded player ran some of his threats over onto that side, but he did end up like committing a ton to it. So I was like, all right, well, I know from playing on that side that I really hated when my opponent threatened that room from that door. So I'm gonna try to do that. So I basically had one of my immortals open that door and like had my apprentice teleport him in front of that door so that he could immediately threaten it on turn 2 with 3 APL because I had comms buffed him before teleporting him.
Okay.
So that way I opened the door to like a 3 APL open move shoot. And so I'm immediately threatening his back objective. And then there's this game of chicken on the middle objective where, we can both at any time teleport a guy like a death mark that's on guard, on conceal or something, and shoot somebody. And to be honest, I can't even fully remember how the fighting started, but there was a big element of like, at one point, Guy had like three guys in the middle room, all on guard, on engage, and I had my death mark against the door. I had paid to have him on conceal on engage, and I'm like, at any time after one of his actions, I can pull the trigger and flip to engage and do my guard shot and kind of like take one of these guys off the board. Um, but then when I go, he's going to get one of his guard shots to shoot back at my death mark. So after every action, both of us were having to like sit and think whether or not we wanted to trigger the guard and like
Mm-hmm.
open the floodgates of like us shooting each other. Um, and I know I ended up getting like one cheeky shot on turn 2 that killed a guy, and that guy came back, and we had that like Mexican standoff going on still.
Okay.
Um, and I was able to like pull another death mark out and give him a third APL so we could ignore obscuring, poke out just enough to see a guy and shoot him. And then the shot back for Guy's higher attack wasn't going to be good because I was obscured to him and he hadn't procced the ignore obscuring on his death mark. So it was a lot of like looking for angles, and like I think at one point I moved my death mark out in a spot where I could see his immortal and be obscured, but his death mark, who was ignoring obscurity, couldn't see me at all, so no visibility. So I would like get one shot off, and then I had my other death mark who was on guard, on conceal, shoot another guy, and they would drop the confirmed kill, and I would have my chronomancer at the end of the turn teleport them onto the objective to tap the point and pick up the confirmed kill. And it was just a very like tactical game. Um, and I had a really good time. He was a really good opponent. And it's hard to recount the game, honestly. It was just very like back and forth, like finding ways to shoot each other. Um, and like getting like crazy magnification shots off and just picking models off, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
And I don't remember what the score was in that game, but I did
Um,
win.
should have it up here. Looks like the score was. Oh, hang on. Mm-mm-mm. So this was
Oh, I've
your
got it. It was 18-14.
1814. Okay. So I would call it a decisive win.
Yeah, it was a pretty clean game.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a great opponent, great player. I really love. I think that was one of my favorite. Him and Adrian playing the mirror matches. It was just such a blast.
That's good to
And we
hear.
were
I
like,
hate mirror matches like
yeah, I
so
usually
much.
do
So I'm
too.
very happy to hear that you had a different like experience with those.
I'm starting to think that I might like mirror matches because I also really enjoyed playing the Felgor mirror matches at Nova. So maybe I'm just a sicko and I like mirrors, but both Adrian and Guy also really enjoyed the game. So I don't know. I think the Hierotek mirror might just be fun.
Mm-hmm. It kind of is also like, it's the most skill base that you can get, right? When you and your opponent have the same exact team, same exact
Yeah.
models.
You can't complain about your opponent's team because you're both running the same crap. So it's like it's kind
Right.
of cool.
Yeah. All right. So, your second round of championship stage. Let me pull that back up here. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Oh, it was against George R. Moore.
Yeah. So this was the heartbreaker. So for context, I stayed at an Airbnb with the Great Lakes Kill Team crew that we are a part of,
Mm-hmm.
which includes our friends across the border in Ontario, Canada, George, Avoyan, Alex Arthur, um, and myself, and I and Voyan's girlfriend was there as well. Vivek was staying at the hotel. He was not staying at us with the Airbnb, but we were all kind of like a group together,
Okay.
which felt a little odd for me because I'm the
Yeah,
American
because
and a
you're the
group of
only
Canadians.
American.
But I felt a lot more camaraderie with them than I did like as an American for Team
It
USA.
it makes sense geographically, right?
Yeah, like we're the Great Lakes Kill Team people. Like we've had this little group for a while, and these guys are like some of my best friends in the scene. And I've played against George so much over the years on TTS and in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and having to play in the quarterfinals broke our hearts a little bit because I think we had this dream that we could meet in the finals theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we get paired for top eight, and George is playing Warp Coven.
All
And
right.
I mentioned earlier, Ryan, that I didn't have any Warp Coven in my pod,
Yeah.
which meant that for the 2 weeks prepping, I did not prep for Warp Coven. My thought was, if I get to top 16 and I have to play Warp Coven, I'll figure it out then.
Jeez. All right. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, makes sense, right?
yeah, you got to deal with what's in front of you.
Yeah.
Um, and like if I had taken time away from practicing for Inquisition just so I could maybe face Warp Coven, I might not have won my Inquisition game.
Right. Yeah.
So kind of goes that way. So the bright side here is that I know George did not have any reps in a Hierotek. There's
Okay.
nobody in. I know who's up there in Canada. I know what they're playing. There's none of them are playing Hierotek. Um, at least not against George. Uh, and so we were kind of both going in relatively blind. I'd played against Warp Coven before. I played against Vivek's Warp Coven specifically with my novitiates once.
Mm-hmm.
That was novitiates, and there's a lot of different lists you can make with Warp Coven. So I felt pretty blind going in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So we were on Into the Dark, and we were on Upload, which is like my least favorite mission ever. It's the one where you say your opponent has 2 points on an objective and you tap it, they lose all their points. Um, and you can like cash in your points at the end of the turn. So Upload sucks, but we get that one, and I was personally afraid, and I've talked to George about this a little bit. I was a little bit afraid that he was going to go like four Felgors, Zangors,
Okay.
because the Zangor warriors they can do free mission actions if they're in your opponent's territory. So
Oh,
it
okay.
makes a lot of sense that you could move a Zangor in and just tap the opponent's back objective and like wipe all their points away.
Yeah.
But he ended up going 6 Marines. He went 3 sorcerers, 3 rubrics, which I don't think is like his preferred loadout most of the time. Um, so we basically I go Psychomancer, um, because I think turning off crits for rubrics is I mean turning off crits for everything is good.
Yeah,
You
that's
find
just
that out when
great.
you're weighing the decision. You're like weighing every team and you're like, yeah, this team likes crits. Um,
Turns out like every team really likes rolling crits.
yeah, there's not a lot of teams out there that don't care about crits.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you go. I go Psychomancer with 1 Deathmark, 3 Immortals. In hindsight, I don't know. I thought maybe I could have gone 2 Deathmarks, but I think I made the right choice. Um, and the Immortals have Teslas, which is I'm happy that I'm onto the dark because against Legionary and Warp Coven, where they reduce your piercing, Hierotek is basically forced to take Teslas into them, whether they're on open or into the dark, because you'd rather have 5 shots
Okay.
than 4 shots without piercing.
Yeah.
And on Into the Dark, the Teslas get lethal 5, so like you get a little extra benefit with the gun that you're gonna take anyway.
Mhm.
Um, and the Psychomancer has piercing 2, which is pretty cool against the reduced piercing because I still get to take away one of their saves. And there's a room. So this is the Into the Dark room with the middle hallway with like the walls in there. Like it's like a long hallway, and there's like walls, and there's the objective between the two walls.
Okay.
Um, and to the left of that objective is the room. There's a door to the room where my home objective is. And so my plan was to throw my Psychomancer into the corner of that room and open the door so that I could have the Nightmare Shroud bubble, yeah, on both objectives. So my
Okay,
home
yeah.
objective and the middle one. What I did not expect was that George was going to go super aggressive, and he made his Soul Reaper cannon move up. And he, on counteract, he had him open that door looking into my room where my home objective was on turn 1.
Mhm.
And so on turn 2, I had um, my Immortal with 3 APL, move, dash, and shoot the um, Soul Reaper cannon. And he didn't kill him, but he did like 6 or 7 damage to him. And then I had the Psychomancer. Oh, and the important thing here is when he opened that door, he had opened that door before I'd moved the Psychomancer. And so like we
Okay.
knew he knew that like I couldn't really shoot him with the Psychomancer unless I blasted myself.
Uh-huh.
And we're both like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Not against a full health rubric.
Yeah.
Um, but what he forgot is that he opens the door, I can see him, and I cast Visions of Madness, which is the third Psychomancer spell, which basically means when he goes to activate that guy, I roll a d6, and if I roll equal to or higher than his APL, he has to pick somebody else to go. So that was a big misplay from George, because I get to make that shot with the Tesla, do some damage, and then he tries to activate the Soul Reaper cannon. He fails. He has to
Oh
activate
my
somebody else.
god.
And then I have the Psychomancer say to that Immortal sitting there, you did a great job. I'm going to magnify shoot from you, which means that the Immortal is going to get blasted. And I believe I just killed the Soul Reaper cannon and my Immortal. Um, and so I get a kill right away, and I'm able to move. I command my reanimator to dash over and then move and reanimate the uh, Immortal that just died. And it gets very bloody very fast. He moves his flamer up into the middle room and just starts shooting people. He shoots my um, He goes into the room, just he barely has the movement to go into the room, and he shoots and finishes off my Psychomancer. And then that immortal that I reanimated charges the rubric. Because the rubric ended up closing the door behind him or something, or the door got closed somehow. And I charged the rubric, who's in the very corner of the ITD room, in a way that he can't physically get past my immortal to fall back. And since he's in engagement range, he can't open the door.
Mm.
So that rubric marine is literally stuck sitting in combat with my immortal with
Woof.
nowhere to go, which is just awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, later on, I have another immortal run up the right flank and threaten his back objective, which is in another long, big open room, and I shoot the guy, and I don't really do much. I kind of bounce off him, and then he ends up killing that immortal with his um, sorcerer. And I'm like, all right, this is a little bit scary.
Hmm.
I my psycho gets reanimated. He goes into the middle room. Yeah, he opens that door and goes into the middle room and stands on the smoke grenade that George had dropped earlier in the turn,
Okay.
um, and taps the middle objective. And I'm also on his side of the board, so he took contain against me, so I'm denying his contain with the psycho.
Okay.
And um, I think I ended up killing the guy that was in the smoke earlier with my immortal that, or with my death mark who could ignore obscuring. I think that's what happened,
Okay.
which is why there was nobody on that smoke anymore. And then we go into turn 4, and this was like the play that swung the game because that immortal on his back area that he killed that like bounced off the rubric, he reanimates,
Okay.
and I win initiative. So I reanimate him on engage on the objective, just outside of 2 inches of those of the sorcerer and the rubric that are in that room that are within 2 inches of each other. And so I win initiative. I have my injured Psychomancer wobble up to that door, open it, and magnify blast the sorcerer and the rubric marine standing there. And I bring them both down to like 2 and 5 wounds left. And that flamer that was in the corner got melee to death by the immortal because he was really low on health already. Um, and it's basically at a point where he's just got 3 guys left. He's got that sorcerer on the left side who can't really do anything. And he's got these 2 guys that are extremely low, and he has the one guy double shoot my immortal that was standing there revived. He double shoots him, and the immortal lives because I think he's in the Nightmare Shroud bubble or something. Or maybe he just rolled bad and I made my saves because he was injured. He was really hitting on 4s. Um, and he lives on like 3 wounds, the immortal. And then George, very smartly, this play might have saved him the game. George throws a stun grenade with his third APL and stuns that immortal so that I can't like shoot and tap the point, which would have
Oh yeah.
removed all of his points on the back objective. Um, and so I hold off on activating that immortal because I'm afraid if I shoot and kill that guy, I'm going to splash mortals onto myself because he moved within 2 of me. And I've only got 3 wounds left, so if I get 3 crits, I just kill my own guy.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I probably should have just shot with him because if I'm getting 3 crits, I'm probably going to kill him anyway, and then it doesn't matter. So George made it kind of tough for me, but I was able to have my apprentice come up and magnify a shot off of, I believe, the Psychomancer and finish off the Sorcerer. And I think my Death Mark was able to shoot and kill the Rubric, and I had killed 5 of his guys. I end up getting enough points on my main point. He wins on crit op. I deny his contain pretty well. I get my confirmed kill points. And I just like I win heavily on kill op. And I end up winning what was the score? I know I had uh I think I only had like 13 points in the win, but he might have had like
Yeah, it looks like 13.
yeah. And yeah, it was 13 to 11. So it was a
Okay.
very close
Yeah.
game. And I mean, George played it awesome. It was very hard. And I was very sad that, he had to get knocked out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I mean, George definitely was like, he definitely took his foot off the gas in terms of how seriously he was going to take the event. once he made top eight,
Okay.
because at the time we all thought top eight is locked for top eight. So like
Yeah.
for him, pressure was off. He's like, my goal was like to get out of groups. So I have top eight. Like I'm super happy.
Yeah.
And then, next day we find out that he actually is not locked for top eight,
That's
which
crazy.
really sucks.
Yeah. Okay, so with that win over George, that puts you into top four, right?
Yes.
That's crazy. So, like, how are you feeling the night prior to the final day?
I got really nervous.
Uh
Um,
huh.
I'm usually pretty good with nerves, but I was like, oh my God, what am I going to play? I was hoping that I would play against Warp Coven because I felt like it was a better matchup than Legionary,
Mm hmm.
and I think that's true. And I ended up getting paired into Javier Escu from Spain, who's
Mm hmm.
playing Legionary. Um, and on the other side was Jimmy Kelly against Dan. Jimmy's running Legionary and Dan's Warp Coven. So my hope was to play Dan. I ended up getting Javier, and we're on open board, and I'm like, all right. So I've played Legionary once. It was on Into the Dark, and I went Psycho, and I almost won. I think Techno is not as good, and I can't run Chrono into Legionary. It's just not really good. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go Psycho.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I like now that I've played the matchup a few times, Psycho is what I think you have to take in a Legionary.
Mm hmm.
And like a very top level Legionary player, like Techno is just not proactive enough. Like you're punishing mistakes more so than like creating plays, whereas Psycho can like be kind of unignorable.
Yeah.
And we played this game on the Spanish stream, Kill Team Granada, and we're mic'd up. So I mean, there's Spanish commentary, but we are mic'd up playing in English. If anybody wants to go back and watch that
Oh,
game,
cool. Okay.
it was a pretty interesting game. Um, Javier went five Nurgle and a Zinch Melta, kind of like John, but he didn't take warriors. He ended up taking like the Shrive Talon and the Balefire, which John dropped against me. Um, and we're playing on what was the mission? Sabotage. So this one, if you ignore the sabotage part and you just protect your back objective, it's just like hold more.
Okay.
Like you
Yeah.
just hold your back point and then hold the middle point and you get 2 points.
Yeah.
And that's like it. So I'm like looking at this and I'm like, I don't want to go kill op. Tac op can be a little dangerous because I'm going to go confirm kill. Um, so let's go. I made my primary crit op, and I think it was the right choice. And this game was, it felt really hard. I think for both of us. I had the impression that SQ didn't have a lot of reps in a Psychomancer. Um, and basically I like stage turn one. I'm like very careful about my positioning so that because he has like a fortress on his side where he can run his guys against a door that like threaten the middle objective. But I was able to like stage my guys on my back objective just outside of his threat range from the door. But close enough where I could hit him if he goes onto the middle and I out activate him. So I'm like, this feels like a good strategy to me. And I put my death mark up on my fortress and my home objective, or by my, not my home objective, but by my side of the board,
Mm hmm.
just overlooking that middle point. And I can put him on turn two. I put him on conceal on guard for a CP to basically like threaten him whenever he goes at me. Um, and he runs his guy out onto the middle objective. Eventually, is anointed on turn two, and um, I have my Deathmark shoot him. Basically, I pay an APL on the Deathmark to ignore obscurity because there was like a ruins in front of the barricade on the objective. So he was going to keep himself safe behind the light barricade, but get obscurity from the ruins. Um, and so I have my Deathmark pay to ignore obscurity and shoot him, and I do like I want to say like 7 damage, maybe like seven or 8 damage. And I bring him down decently low, and I'm able to get a shot off with my Psychomancer onto the Anointed 2. He survives that, and he's on like 3 wounds. Um, Immediately it's like, all right, I know what I'm in for here because this is Legionary, but like, man, it is still a little bit tilting to shoot anything in the game with a Death Mark and a Psychomancer and have it live. Especially when I had the
Yeah.
magnification, so I'm getting ceaseless. But whatever, that's Legionary. And he shoots back at my Death Mark with the um Balefire, and he just like one shots him with Life Siphon, which is absolutely insane. But
Yeah.
that happens. I have my reanimator there to bring him back to life right away that turn, at the end of the turn. And then on turn 3, the next turn, I win initiative. And this is where I messed up because I think he won initiative or something, and he gave it to me because he had thrown a smoke onto his anointed and he had healed him to like 5 wounds now.
Hmm.
Um, and like the only guy that can shoot the anointed is my psycho, and I'd have to blast myself to do that. And he's got like all of his marines like hiding behind that wall to like punish me if I do that. So he gives initiative to me. Um, and I'm looking at the board and I'm like, man, I don't really have like an initiative play right now. So I'm just going to have my accelerator give an APL to an immortal, and then it's your turn. And I think this is the moment where I lost the game because Escu didn't know this, which is it was a major mistake of him to give me initiative. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, because what I forgot, this only happened one time the whole tournament, which is why it's literally never happened to me in all of my games with Hierotek, where
Okay.
I shoot a guy with a death mark and the guy lives, which means he gets a death. He's supposed to get a death marked token,
Hmm.
which means that a death mark gets seek, not seek light, seek into that target for the rest of the game. So he had moved that anointed with his counteract into the heavy cover so that I couldn't shoot him. I could have just shot him with seek. I could have, with initiative on turn 3, my first activation, I could have just killed his anointed on the middle objective.
Oh my god.
And I just didn't do it. He didn't know either, clearly, because otherwise he would not have given me initiative.
Yeah.
Um,
And you
and
didn't
what
realize this until well after the game?
the next day, like I
Oh
thought
my
about it like the day after.
god.
Yeah, like somebody pointed out to me the death mark rule, and I'm like, holy crap! Oh no! So what happens is
Damn.
the anointed shoots me with a bolt pistol. He just takes like a pot shot with a bolt pistol, and then he
Hmm.
move dashes behind that door, like in
Here it
his back.
goes. Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to kill this guy. So I have my psycho reactivate Nightmare Shroud, and I walk up and I hatchway flight through the wall. I have accurate, and I just auto kill him.
Hmm.
But now the confirmed kill token is way back. It's hard for me to
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
and I've just fed him my Psychomancer. Because otherwise, if that guy just dies, the confirmed kill's on the middle objective, and my Psycho doesn't move out. And if he wants to come attack my Psychomancer, he has to commit and move out into the open where all my guys can shoot him. And none of that happened. I just have to. I feed him my Psychomancer. Psycho dies. Next turn, I reanimate the Psycho, but he wins initiative, so I can't even like threaten it really in a big way.
Mm.
Um, and he like piles his guys onto the middle objective now, and I just don't have the support from Psycho to deal with it. Like he charges and like passes onto the middle objective onto one of my immortals because I gave him an APL to like move dash out and shoot the Shrive in. Didn't do a lot of damage. I think, well, it did a decent amount of damage, but not enough to kill him. Um, and then he like fights me with the Shrive, I think, and I think I live, but I bring the Shrive down low, and then he has the Chosen come out and charge and pass on the middle objective. So he's like, there's just a wave of bodies in the middle objective, and I have my Death Mark charge down off the building to stand on the middle objective so that I can at least hold it.
Yeah.
But now I've got a bunch of guys locked up with his Chosen, and I have my Apprentice go and recast the Nightmare Shroud on himself because the Psycho's dead. And I command my one immortal to fight that Shrive Talon. And I like kind of whiff. I think I do like 3 damage to him, and he actually makes a big mistake, Escu, and he kills that immortal. He doesn't just parry. He should have just parried out and stayed in combat. He kills the immortal, which then opens up a magnify shot from the other death mark that's engaged right there
Yeah.
because he's in combat, but I can still shoot from him. And I shoot the Shrive Talon now that he's not in combat with Ceaseless, and it does no I like bounce off. He's
Oh
got
my
3 wounds left. I can't
God.
do any damage because they've got like a they're reducing piercing,
Yeah.
and I can't roll average even, or else he's gonna just save it all. And I don't roll well, so he lives. I have another immortal come in and fight, and I just need to do like I need to get 1 4 up on 3 dice, and I don't, and I just lose another immortal, and at that point the game's over.
Yeah.
I killed one of his 6 guys, and it what really sucked is I had confirmed kill, and I couldn't get a single point on it. My game plan really was to kill 3 of his guys and pick up at least 2 of the confirmed kill tokens, and you know win on kill op to get the extra like 3 or 4. I think it would get me to 3 points on kill op and suppress him to like 1, maybe 2, ideally 0
Hmm.
on kill op, and win on crit op. And I put myself in a position to win on crit op. I did well and made it my primary, and I scored decent on it. Would have been better if I had like not collapsed with all like the stuff that happened. But I could not kill anything after the mistake. Um, and I just hate that I forgot about that death marked ability because I
Yeah.
literally had like a auto kill. It was literally an auto kill
Yeah.
because the death mark has 4 attacks on 2s. He has severe and devastating 2, so I'm guaranteed to do 2 damage. I'm probably going to get all 4 hits, which means he's just dead. He can't save all 4. He takes 3 down to 2, and he's just dead. But I need to remember that if I played Hierotek again. It's just so rare that a death mark shoots something and it doesn't die.
Yeah.
Never
Well,
ever happens. Like
you're definitely never gonna forget about that
no,
rule now, because yeah,
definitely not.
that stinks.
Yeah, but I mean Escu played very well. He was a really good player. The Spanish guys are just like super intense and they're all good at the game and they
Yeah.
take it very seriously. And I know I could have won that game if it would have been a totally different game at least.
Hmm.
If
Had you
if
been
I had
able to kill
remembered
that
that.
guy, because then you're not having to feed your Psychomancer out to
Yeah.
go and get this guy. Yeah.
Because it was like I fed my Psychomancer, so I lost a guy, and then another guy had to go up that shouldn't have had to go up, and then somebody else died, and then that guy had to go up, and it was just
Yeah,
like
it's
a
just like
wave of
compounding. Yeah.
yeah. It would have been way way better for me. And also not to blame dice because the dice were not the reason, obviously.
Yeah.
But man, when you take Psychomancer, the whole point is that they can't reroll their attack dice, so like when they miss, it's really bad for them.
Yeah.
Askew did not miss. He never missed.
Oh, okay.
Every time he attacked, it was like 4 hits out of 5 dice, or his Melta. The first time his Melta shot into me, thank God I had no crits on because he got 4 6s, 4 natural 6s. Um, and then next turn he shot again with the Melta and he got 3 6s and a 5. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, can you miss a dice, please? But yeah, like when you take Psycho and your opponent just makes all their hits, uh, the reroll bubble, the no rerolls doesn't feel very impactful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. So, your final opponent of the tournament wound up being Jimmy Kelly.
Yeah. I was super happy about this. Jimmy and I haven't gotten to play in a long time. I think it
Yeah.
was like KTO the last time he played, which was like 2 years ago almost.
Yeah.
And Jimmy was playing Legionary. And we had just, both of us, we were the 2 Americans, and we wanted it ideally to be 2 Americans in the finals. Like, how
Yeah.
sweet would that have been? But we both lost, and we're in the third place game, and we're like, who cares?
Yeah.
This was, we wanted to win, so let's just like mess around. Like we got put on open and we both went to Ben the TO and we were like, hey Ben, can we just play on Into the Dark? We both want to play on Into the Dark. It would be more fun. And Ben's like, yeah, sure, I don't care as long as there's an open table. And we're like, sweet, we're gonna go play on Into the Dark. And I was like, I'm gonna play Technomancer. I don't care if it's the right choice. I'm just gonna do it because I haven't played him once this whole
Okay.
tournament. And Jimmy was like, I'm gonna go around and ask all the Legionary players if they'll let me borrow one of their warriors so that I can run he called it his rainbow team of
Okay.
5 chainsword warriors. Or it was 4 chainsword warriors, an icon bearer, and then his leader. And
Okay.
That is what he ran against me. Um, very funny. Uh, and he ran the Chosen, and uh, this game, like, it was the most low stakes game of the entire tournament
Yeah.
because we have like nothing on the line anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we're playing for third place, which is, I mean, I didn't even realize until after our game that there's like a trophy for third place, which is sweet. I probably would have taken it more seriously. Um,
Yeah, true.
but he like we it was funny because it's like solo stress. I'm playing with Jimmy. We're like joking around, we're having a good time.
Hmm.
And like he's just throwing warriors at me. And I'm like just mowing them down with my immortals and my death marks. I ran like two death marks, two immortals and techno. And I'm just like mowing these guys down. They're just like regular dudes just running at me.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. And then the Chosen comes in, and I had witnessed this Chosen like roll me in two separate Legionary games now, and both my losses in the tournament. And it was like this game was the moment where I realized how insane the Chosen truly was.
Okay.
Because it's like these things were happening to me in the other games, but it wasn't clicking for me how effective that model is alone at just crushing Hierotek Circle. Because here's the thing, especially when you don't go Psychomancer. When you go Psychomancer, you can stop it a little bit because you turn off his crits. So whenever he crits, he heals, even if he doesn't kill you. And he
Yeah.
heals
Yeah.
D3 plus 3. And your melee is not very high. Like you're probably doing 6 damage at the most against him.
Yeah.
And then he just crits you. And even if he doesn't kill you, he's just going to heal it all back up.
That's
And
crazy.
what Jimmy did is he charged my my Technomancer, fought him, let him live on like 1 wound or something, and just parried because he crit me, so he heals D3 plus 3. He healed like all the damage. I did like 6 damage to him, and he healed it all back.
Hmm.
And I can't fall back from the Chosen because on a 3-up, I just don't. So next turn, he wins initiative and he kills my Techno, and he shoots my Accelerator and kills him with a pull pistol, and then double charges 2 other Immortals. And I'm like, I can't fall back with them. I can't fight him because he will crit me and then parry me down to low health and heal all the damage I did. And the next turn he'll actually kill me and charge more guys
Oh
who
my
can't fall
God.
back.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like he can literally that one model alone can just run through the entire Hierotech team. And I think there is actually nothing that Hierotech can do about it because
Yeah.
like if he double charges, like sure he's going to take the Tesla Leave damage and then he'll fight me and crit me once and let me live and then heal it all back. And like if he's in combat with 2 guys, I can fall back with one and maybe he fails the 3-up and I get the fall back. But the odds of him failing the 3-up on 2 separate guys falling back, it's not going to happen. So I'm like I can't fight him because then he'll just like I said, he'll parry me down or he'll kill me and he'll heal all the damage back. And I'm like, something in my head just broke. And it's like the first time all tournament I got tilted. And it's funny because it's like a meaningless game.
Yeah.
And I'm just like ranting. And I'm like, this model is a fucking cancer. It can just, like, I seriously think after seeing this game that you could actually just you could run down a model, maybe down 2 models. If you take the Chosen into Hierotech, and I think you could still win. I think the Chosen could just single handedly
Yeah. No, I mean,
run down the whole team.
yeah, the math works out on that.
And the way that
That's
you
an
stop it
insane
is
model.
yeah, the way you stop it is you take the Psycho, so that way he's not getting rerolls. Maybe he whiffs once and he can't crit you. So if he wants to kill you, or if he wants to heal the chip damage you're doing to him, he has to actually kill you and then, be no longer in combat. But this game I was messing around with Techno, so I can't do that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and like Techno has damage reduction that you can give a guy, but it's like it brings his weapon down to 3/6 lethal 5. It's still just mowing me down.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt bad because I was ranting, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm expressing myself, and I haven't done this once all tournament. Even in the most stressful situations, I'm just like, I hate this model.
Just
This model
absolutely
can go straight
crashing
to hell.
out.
I'm like, yeah, I'm crashing out. And I think Jimmy was just like, I think it like, he might have just felt bad for me,
Uh-huh.
honestly, because I'm like, I'm just gonna have all of them fight you and die. So like, here you go, Prentek fights, accurate two, doesn't matter, you kill me or you parry out, and
Yeah.
he maybe he just had like a brain fart and he killed both the models that I fought with,
Uh-huh.
and I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, oh wait, I can shoot him now. I'm like,
Yeah.
he killed me instead of parrying
Finally.
me. So I have the Death Mark come out and shoot him, or I have the Immortal come out and shoot him on guard. He
Hmm.
was already on guard, so the Immortal just shoots him after, and then the Death Mark comes out and shoots him and finishes him off. And then there's just three Chainsword Warriors left, and my Technomancer reanimates, and I'm like, oh, like I just win now. There's just three warriors, and I like most of my team is coming back,
Hmm.
and I just kind of won the game. So like I won that game,
Yeah. Yeah.
but really it was like it was Jimmy just kind of like took his foot off the gas a little bit,
Okay.
and like maybe he like forgot for a second or he just felt bad or something. But
Hmm.
he was a really good sport about it. He
Yeah.
knew that I was not mad at him, and he reassured me of that 100 times.
Good.
Um,
Okay.
and we had a really like I had fun playing with Jimmy. Like we were like joking and messing around, and
Hmm.
it was a good opponent to finish my tournament off against.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, like I all my losses were against Legionaries. That last game is Legionaries, and I learned the Chosen can just like run a train on the entire Legionary team by himself. Um, Pretty horrible to play against. I know to go Psychomancer into them now, and to just not entertain the possibility of any other Cryptech until they like nerf Legionary, maybe. Because I think if they nerf Legionary, they have to change the piercing reduction, obviously. And I think the Chosen needs to. That cannot be the way it is. It's just it's way too hard to kill
Yeah.
if you don't have good melee. So yeah, I mean it's I finished 8-2, and I finished third, which is cool. Hierotek is awesome. I am pretty sure I would have lost that final game if Jimmy took a real list, just because Technomancer against Legionary is just like a non-option, at least on Into the Dark.
Yeah. But then,
Um,
if he had taken a real list, then you would have probably gone with the Psychomancer, so who knows?
yeah, I mean if it had been the finals and we had
Yeah.
both won our semifinal games and we play on Into the Dark, I'm not going to take Technomancer.
No. No.
I had like I was not comfortable at all with that model.
Hmm.
He's good in like up to like a certain point. I think once you hit high tables, Techno gets a lot worse
Okay.
because the good players can just play around it. There's not like a lot to play around really. You just
Yeah.
don't get shot.
Whereas the Psychomancer,
Yeah, I mean,
his
what are you gonna do?
footprint
He's gonna
just
run
takes
into
up
your
a
face.
quarter of the freaking board, and it's like, all
Yeah,
right, dude, I guess I just won't get my. I guess I
yeah.
just am not going to be the mayor of Critty City this game.
He
Um,
turns off Critty City for sure.
he does. Yeah, he shuts it down. It goes broke.
Hard.
Critty City becomes a ghost town.
Yes, it does. It
Um,
really does.
so I guess we can kind of like start wrapping up here, Shane, but
Yeah.
where do you think the current kill team meta lies after playing Worlds? Obviously, this is Worlds. This is not going to be like your local scene, dear listener, wherever you're watching from. But was there anything that stuck out and surprised you regarding like what factions did well, what factions didn't do well? Um, yeah, where
Um,
do you think we're sitting right now?
I honestly I think one thing I noticed after the tournament ended, after it wrapped up, I was like, hey, I think our tier list was pretty damn accurate.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
I
was.
believe
Yeah.
I believe I said I think Warp Coven's the best team in the game, and Warp Coven won Worlds.
Hmm.
I guess a lot of people are now saying that Hierotek is S tier, and I do think they might be. They definitely need a nerf. Psychomancer needs to get nerfed specifically,
Yeah, please.
but I think it's easy. They when you're playing a team that is below A tier or
Hmm.
like an elf team or something, like one of the teams that Psychomancer shuts down, I can see how Hierotek would feel like the most broken thing ever.
Yeah.
But when you're playing Hierotek into Legionary or Warp Coven, it feels like a different tier.
Okay. Yeah.
I will say that. That definitely Legionary. Warp Coven, I mean, I only played against George's Warp Coven and it did not. It felt really, really strong,
Hmm.
but it didn't feel like this impossible task. Whereas at times Legionary felt like, oh my God, this is like
Yeah,
insanity
it's
for
like
me.
what do you do? Yeah.
And I was on record saying that I thought, I guess I wasn't on record, but now I am, saying that I thought Inquisition was going to win Worlds, and they
Yeah.
did not.
Hmm.
They did well overall, but
Yeah.
they didn't make top four. So, but yeah, I mean, it was, and Bart on Void Dancers showed that that team is good. I had a lot of like good thoughts about Void Dancers, so I was happy
Yeah.
to see
Leading
him
up to
do
this,
well.
you were talking about him a little bit to me.
Yeah, and I mean, he definitely was like, I got to go back and watch the stream games because I want to see. Bart got eliminated by George, I believe, in top
Okay.
16.
Yeah.
Um, and that game is on stream on Squad Games. So for you guys to watch, go check out the stream games from Worlds. They were a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Both if you speak Spanish, go check out Kill Team Granada because they streamed half the games too. It was really cool to have two streaming setups.
Yeah.
And then in the finals, both they like the Spaniards moved their stuff over, and they had like two streams going at once for the final game. Um, so it was this thing we didn't really have a lot of last year, where you could like really go and watch the games in the language that you know. Um, Pretty cool though. I mean,
Yeah. Very cool.
it was a sweet like the event perspective, like the community perspective of the event was so good.
Hmm.
And it was so cool meeting all these people and hanging out. And like shout out again to the Canadians, George, Voyan, Vivek, Alex. You guys rock stars. I love staying with them. They're the best. Shout out to Jimmy Kelly, hilarious person. Had a really good time playing him. Can't wait to play him again. um yeah, I mean, it was a great time. Oh, and shout out to Adrian as well, Adrian and Kellen, who were my Hyro heroes who prepped with me. And I probably would not have done as well with Hierotek without their help and guidance. So thanks, guys.
Cool. So yeah, guys, I think that's where we're gonna end this episode, end this video. Thank you guys all for tuning in and watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss out any of that future Kill Team content. Shane, we just cracked 9,800 subscribers on YouTube, so we are, I've been saying it for a while, but we are getting close to that 10,000 subscriber mark. So if you haven't, guys, please, please subscribe. I would love nothing
Yeah.
more than to get to 10K before the year's out.
I think that's gonna be a nice little Christmas present to us, Ryan. And speaking of Christmas presents, one other reason why I
Ooh,
think we're gonna be there is because stay tuned, because for the third year now, we're gonna have the 12 days of Kill Team coming up hot.
hell yeah. Can't wait to get started on those. But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all again in the next one.